I remember finally finishing residency. It was hard, frustrating, and even humiliating at times. I was barely keeping my head above water at work, and at home with my limited free time and the arrival of our firstborn. I remember telling myself that when it ended, I would feel this huge surge of relief. I made it, and life from here on out would be awesome. But what happened next was really unexpected. I didn't feel elated, I felt numb. There were bills at home, charts, and inboxes at work. I suddenly felt like a complete Luddite, and in some ways, I was feeling more pressure because now I was supposed to feel good. This was what I had worked for. If you have ever crossed that finish line and thought, wait, this is it? You're not alone. This is what psychologists call the arrival fallacy. This is what we're going to be talking about today because it has a profound impact on our well-being and contributes to burnout. To really unpack this idea, I wanted to talk with someone who works at the intersection of medicine and mindset, Dr. Tricia James. Tricia is the Director of Clinician Experience for Providence Health and Services in Oregon and a practicing internal medicine primary care physician at Providence Portland Medical Center. She's a physician and coach who helps other doctors reconnect with meaning and navigate burnout in a more human, compassionate way. Tricia, I am so glad to have you here.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Can you introduce yourself a bit more? Tell us how you ended up in this work in the space of physician burnout.
Yeah, my story actually started from my training years and my own personal distress that I experienced as an intern is where I kind of pinpoint a big pivot point in my life. And, as an intern, I was a pretty classic type A perfectionist medical student.
Mm-hmm.
And threw myself into residency, had really adopted the mindset that if you just work harder, everything will be fine. And as a resident, worked, tremendously long hours, super exhausted, and the work is really hard. So trying to navigate like new systems, complex patients, and became very burned out. But at the time, this was before burnout, so I didn't really understand what was happening to me. I just knew that I was emotionally exhausted and that I couldn't make myself care about my patients anymore.
Wow.
And, as somebody who had thrown my entire life into medicine, that I internalized that as a personal failure. Like this is my bad and I'm clearly broken. And that quickly spiraled into depression and actually suicidality. I had a plan at one point and thankfully got connected to help, but didn't tell anybody in my world what was happening, right? I had so much shame about it and still kind of carried this idea of my own personal failure journey. And it wasn't until my chief resident year when all of a sudden I got a different vantage point and I could see my peers, friends, colleagues, and I could see their burnout and I could see their depression in ways that I wasn't able to see before. And it was then that I started getting really interested in this kind of cultural and systems role that plays into burnout. And it lit a fire in me. That experience lit a fire in me of we have to do better. We have to change this. What we're doing is insanity. And so I've been on that path for the last 15 plus years now. And it really wasn't until early 2020, like right as the pandemic was happening, I happened to sign up for a coaching program. And I didn't really even know what coaching was, but I was struggling myself to figure out how I fit into medicine, into the world. And I found coaching to be absolutely transformative. And so it's just grown from there for me and kind of morphed how I do the work. And now my professional world is primarily focused on supporting individual physicians and teams and organizational change.
Thank you. Thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability. I can relate. I know the story, and I'm grateful that you're here where you are today. I want to start with the basics. Can you define arrival fallacy for us and what it really means?
Yeah, I think about it as I will be happy, satisfied, complete when some circumstance happens. So, this is what gets lots of people through medical training, like you said, of when I'm done with residency, when I'm done with this rotation, when I'm done with this, whatever fill in the blank is, when I get a different job, when my kids are older, when, whatever the circumstance is, and then we will be happy or fill in positive emotion there.
Got it. Have you found it can mean different things to different people?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have different ideas about and relationships with positive feelings. So, are we allowed to have those positive feelings? And then what's culturally acceptable? And what are our own values and history and ideas that we're bringing into it? So it shows up in everybody's life differently.
Do you have an inkling as to why our brains even would work this way? Like, what is it about humans that keeps us chasing the next step, the next milestone, as if it's going to fix everything?
I love that question because I've thought about it a lot and read a ton and tried to learn about just how our brains are built. And our brains are meaning making machines. So they're taking in lots and lots of information. But then what's happening is we're making it mean things. We're processing it in different ways. And that's what's creating our lived experience. And we're programmed to want to feel positive feelings and to avoid negative feelings. That's what, from an evolutionary standpoint, has kept us alive, right? You need to stay away from the danger that might kill you. So those negative emotions are really powerful. And we want to feel good. We want the dopamine and all the positive neurotransmitters that come with it. And it's interesting because our brains are so developed that now we have this ability for metacognition. So like we can now recognize we're having thoughts, our brain is making meaning that may or may not be true. But until we recognize that it's actually not our circumstances that are creating our feelings, which is the automatic pathway, that's how most of us operate most of the time, we're going to naturally think, well, I need to change my circumstances so that I can feel better. And we're missing this internal process that our brain is creating thoughts and meaning in the middle, which is really where our power lies.
So, when a person has gotten to that point, to that milestone, to that next chapter, but it doesn't deliver,
Mm-hmm.
what's the emotional fallout?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think it looks different depending on how much you expected. So, what's the gap between reality and expectations? And that's going to look different for all of us depending on how big the thing is that we were anticipating.
Sure.
But you articulated this really well, that often there's a crash that follows because we had expectations that it was going to be amazing and we were going to feel great for a prolonged period of time. And so when reality doesn't meet those expectations, a lot of time the reality is the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
It plummets instead of us feeling amazing.
How do you see the arrival fallacy playing a role specifically with physician burnout?
Hmm. I see this everywhere. And it's our attention to things that we don't actually have control over that we're waiting to change so that we can be happy. So if I just had to see fewer patients, if my patients weren't as complicated, if the system, operated better, um, and so we're giving away all of our power to these things that we don't actually have control over. And with that, right, we're in this perpetual state of waiting to arrive.
Mhm.
And we're missing out on the opportunity for the meaning and the joy and the complexity and the highs and the lows of what it is to be a doctor every day.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. Um, do you, even as a coach who's aware of this stuff, ever catch yourself falling into arrival fallacy thinking?
All the time. I have a human brain just like everybody else. And it's so funny because as much as I think about this stuff and learn about it and can coach other people, I I have the same biology. I have the same automatic pathways that are built in. And so yes, it shows up for me every single day in different ways still. I think the shift that I've been able to see over time is I've been able to refocus my attention where I have more control. And that has made a huge impact on my quality of life. And I'm able to enjoy the journey a lot more, like be present for what is here now and appreciate what is here now without always living in this hypothetical future.
I see. What are some of the tools that you use to recognize that this is happening inside of you?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. And to be honest, sometimes it takes me days, weeks for some of the bigger stuff to recognize what my brain is doing. And I still get coached regularly myself because I still benefit from support and an outside person seeing things that sometimes I can't see. And what I have gotten better at, so while I might have existed in, kind of a loop or a pattern for weeks before, sometimes I can catch it in a few days now.
Mm.
And I can start asking myself, what do I actually have control over? And what are the stories that I'm telling myself? Are they true? Are they 100% true? And I've done a lot of work for myself around different metaphors that I try to embrace of how I think about life. And whether that's I'm going on a hike and there's going to be some hard times tromping through mud, and then there's going to be a beautiful view and it's all part of the journey. That's one of them that I carry around in my head. But when I can re-anchor myself in some of those ideas, it's just a reminder. This is the moment in time that I'm in right now. This is what my brain is making this circumstance mean. And it doesn't take it away, but it does lessen the intensity of the negativity and help me cultivate more presence, in moments throughout my life.
And you mentioned something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and that is, how much of burnout isn't just about workload, but about the stories that we tell ourselves.
Yes.
What are some of the common stories that you hear physicians telling themselves that you think contribute to burnout?
Oh, there's so many that I think are, we've culturally normalized a lot of them. They're so commonly shared that they've almost become beliefs in a lot of our communities
Mhm.
that I don't see us challenging collectively. And a lot of it has to do with that focus on the negative. And, if you look for it, gosh, there's plenty that's not going well. Like, that is true. There's always going to be opportunities for systems to work better, for, medicine to advance. And I think what we're missing a lot is there's also the good. There's also still a tremendous opportunity for connection, for meaning, for impact. And I worry that we're so stuck and focused on what's not working. Understandably, I get it, that we're not always seeing the positive, and I'm not sure that we're critically looking at the negative in ways that are helpful. And what I mean by that is just, are we feeling like we're a victim of the circumstance? Or are we able to take a step back and say, this thing's really frustrating, this isn't working, what can I do about it? What's in my control? In a more productive way.
Thank you. That's great. I do want to pause on something here, because it's not always easy to change the story that we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes after years of believing that we just can't do anything to make a difference, we stop trying.
Yes.
And it's not because we don't care, but it's because we've started to believe it just doesn't matter.
Yes.
And, you had mentioned sort of this learned helplessness. I think it shows up in medicine all the time. And I will be digging deeper into this particular topic in a different episode, but because I think it kind of deserves a space of its own. But for right now, what I'm wondering is, do you see, how do you see learned helplessness showing up in your colleagues and your patients? And then I want to transition to, what do you think we can do to unlearn that story?
Yeah, I think it's everywhere. And I think it's actually one of the biggest barriers to making things better. Because I worry that we've collectively as physicians lost the belief that we can make it better. And so we've disengaged, and I understand it, right? If it's been so frustrating for you to engage, it can be a healthy coping strategy to disengage in the short term. And where I see that we get into trouble as physicians is we're not clear when we're operating in our sphere of influence. So recognizing I have influence over this issue, but I do not have control. And yet we're thinking that our success is dependent on the outcome when we don't actually have control over the outcome. And so, of course, it's frustrating. Like, if you're saying I'm only successful if I get what I want in my sphere of influence, it makes sense that you're going to get progressively more and more frustrated and then disengage. And so how we combat that is you get really clear when you're operating in your sphere of influence, defining success based off of how you show up, not the outcome.
Wow. The power that we have in a situation where we're feeling helpless isn't about the situation whatsoever, because the power that we have is how we show up.
Yes.
And that's where I'm hearing that you say that that's where the work needs to happen.
Yes.
I know you have seen some beautiful transformations through your work. Is there a moment or a story that comes to mind that you'd be willing to share about when someone really broke free from this arrival fallacy?
It's a great question. There's so many. And I think I will just speak to my experience, which has been the most intimate to me, obviously, and like what it's felt like to live some of this transformation. And for a long time, for most of my life, I carried this idea around that life was just hard and you just had to bear through it. And, there's lots of reasons and how I was raised and, like cultural stuff that went into that. But I carried this firm belief and struggled with my career for years and how to find joy and meaning. And I was frustrated and obviously got to this deep low of not sure, I wasn't sure it was worth living anymore.
Yeah.
I can genuinely say I love my life. And my life is overwhelming. I have 3 kids, and between them, there's 6 different activities, and it's chaos every day, and medicine is falling apart. And, and yet, I genuinely love my life. And I am beyond grateful for all of the amazing people that are in it. And that's it's hard to even articulate what a big transformation that has been for me.
So I wondered if you could say just a little bit more about your experiencing with your own coaching and how instrumental that has been kind of to where you are today, your successes today.
Yeah, I credit my coaches and all the coaching training and experience I've had to this transformation. And I honestly don't think for me it would have been possible without this external person being able to be a mirror for me, reflecting back what they were seeing, questioning what my own brain was doing and making things mean. And, I said I still get my own coaching almost every single week. And for me, it has become a no-brainer in terms of priorities because of the value that I have found in it.
I appreciate you sharing that. I absolutely credit my resumption from burnout to coaching, and the coach that I had who held the mirror to my face and allowed me to kind of think big, and was the reason that we ended up moving from Portland to Cleveland. But I am forever grateful for that work. Hey, Tricia, thank you for this conversation. It's been thoughtful, it's been real, it's been full of hope. But before we close, what's one mindset shift or reminder you'd love to leave with our listeners?
Well, I would leave with the invitation for hope, which is something that I think a lot about in actually intentionally cultivating hope and looking for, why do I have reasons to be hopeful? What can I find that gives me hope? And in my experience, that drives so much of what becomes possible, because it's that positive intention that I can bring with me. And honestly, for me, I find so much hope in the people. And I think in medicine in particular, we are surrounded by amazing people. And so I find hope from them and from my patients and from my family, like all these places every day. And it fuels me. It keeps me going. And it makes it a lot more enjoyable too.
That's amazing. Thank you, Tricia. The truth is, Arrival isn't a place. It's not a title. It's not a paycheck. It's not a calendar date. It is a mindset, though. And if we stop waiting to arrive, we might find something better. A way to be present now. Not because everything is perfect, But if we're paying attention to the parts that matter, it does remind us about the reason we started doing this career in the first place. Thanks for listening to another episode of Heal the Burn. This is Dr. Steven Sears.